Now, our sector watch this week, we look at the retail pharmacy business, and I'm joined in studio by Darragh O'Loughlin, President of the Irish Pharmaceutical Union, Deirdre Leahy from Dún Laoghaire Pharmacy, and on the phone we've got Mary Rose Burke, the Chief Pharmacist at Boots. Good morning to you all.
Hi, Good morning.
Morning, Bobby.
Now, Mary Rose, I'm going to start with you. How is the sector doing? What's it like in the Boots camp, to use that sort of pun?
Well, in Boots, pharmacy would be going through the same changes that both Deirdre and Darragh will have seen across the sector over the last couple of years. We've gone through very, very difficult and challenging couple of years. And in line with everybody else, we've had to look at how we run our business, where we can make more efficiencies, how tightly we can run our business, and how we're going to deal with these challenges in the future. So we would be in the same camp as everybody else, challenging, but there's opportunities out there at the same time.
Very good. Darragh, there was an issue last year, this HSE thing, Mary Harney. Effectively, your margin was just eroded overnight. Can you explain to our listeners, maybe in layman's language, that situation?
What the Minister did last year was she reduced very significantly the price that's paid to pharmacists for dispensing medicines on behalf of the HSE. So while the medicines themselves didn't get any cheaper, the price that we get from the government for dispensing them to medical card holders and to people on the drug payment scheme was reduced very considerably. So as you say, that eroded our margins, and that gave rise to the challenges that Mary Rose referred to, where pharmacies in general have had to respond by introducing efficiencies, by rationalising their business. And unfortunately, across the sector, we lost about 10% of all the people that worked in pharmacy. So we've lost about 1,600 jobs. But
just to say that again, that's a lot of jobs, 1,600 jobs.
It's a very substantial loss in employment. We had previously been employing about 16,500 people in pharmacies, community pharmacies across Ireland, and that would go from the small independent all the way up to Boots. But as a result of these changes and the rationalisation, about 1 in 10 of those staff lost their jobs, which is very unfortunate.
I just want to bring Deirdre Leahy in here. Deirdre, you're a smaller pharmacist. You've got your own business. You're operating there in Dún Laoghaire. What's it been like for you?
Oh, it's very difficult at the moment. It's been a very difficult year. We're trying to maintain the same services with a lot less really income coming in. So it's difficult to maintain the same quality of service with less income.
So you've all the headaches that any high street retailer would have with rising rents, with rates that you're forced to pay. Just basically...
The costs haven't changed. The costs of doing business haven't changed. You know, the rents, the rates, the wages, they're the same. What has decreased is the amount that we're getting for the dispensing of those drugs.
And Darragh, can I just ask you another question? Like, I know the high street pretty well, and when I was out there bidding for coffee shops and shopping centres, the pharmacy piece always went to tender. In other words, the pharmacists seem to be able to pay an awful lot more rent than other retailers. Now, I'm talking about in the past. And is this part of the legacy that pharmacists paid too much for their locations? Is there any truth in that?
There was a sector-wide explosion in property values that were leveraged off the rents that people were prepared to pay. I think there was an overwhelming optimism that didn't just affect our sector, it was all sectors were affected by this optimism. Everybody believed the economy would continue growing at the pace it had been growing, and we had been seeing year-on-year increases in pharmacy business back in the early part of this decade and the latter part of the previous one, so that would have fed into it, and as a result a lot of pharmacists have found themselves tied into leases where they sign those leases at the top end of the market.
Mary Rose, can I ask you about the latest innovation in Boots? You're selling the morning after pill. Has that gone okay, or is there political stuff around that? Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, Bobby, we've been looking, and I think the trend for the future will be that there will be constant pressure on the dispensing business. While it's still a core and very important part of our business, I think pharmacy as a whole is going to have to look at developing new services, how we deliver.
We're having a bit of a problem on the line there with you, Mary Rose. Just hang on there a second, we'll come back to you in a minute.
But just on that point, Bobby, Mary Rose is absolutely right that what the pharmacy profession as a whole is looking at doing is innovating now and increasing the range of services that they provide, and Boots have led the way in this regard. Last year they started vaccinating against influenza last October, November, and now they have started their emergency contraception service. But these are services that we are hoping to see rolled out within the next couple of months in the case of of the latter one, the emergency contraception, across the entire pharmacy network in Ireland.
And could I ask you, Deirdre Leahy, is there a barrier then for the smaller chemists providing a service like this? Do you need a medical doctor on call, or how does it work?
No, the limiting factor at the moment is legislation, and really the health service executive really giving us the right to do it. But we have all equal qualifications. I think the limit would be the medical director signing off on.
Boots have their own medical director, and he has signed what's called a patient group direction, which means that for a particular cohort of patients under specific circumstances, a medication can be dispensed in the absence of a prescription, although it's a prescription medicine.
Are you back with us, Mary Rose? No, we've lost Mary Rose. Well, we can.
So that's.
You're
there. You're there. Are you?
There. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, we didn't mean to talk about you in your absence. We were talking about...
I think the patient group directions and the success that we've had with both the flu vaccine campaign and also with the emergency contraception and the uptake from the public has very much demonstrated to us that people out there want their pharmacies to be able to deliver more by way of these kind of services. And I'd echo what Deirdre said there. We do need the HSE and the Department of Health to look at pharmacy and say, what more can pharmacy deliver? We're highly qualified, well within pharmacist scope of competence to do advanced services. So we need an overarching vision of what pharmacy can deliver in the community, what needs to be true to make it happen, what training needs to be there, and to just move on and stop looking in the past. We need the department to take a new approach to pharmacy, and it can't just be left to the sector to decide what to develop itself. It can't be about what we feel we want to do. It has to be the people through the health service executive identifying these are the services that are needed in the community, and these are where we need pharmacy to move into.
Okay. Darragh, can I ask you about your organisation? In the past, am I right in saying that you controlled how many pharmacists could open where? Have you been victim almost like the taxi drivers that you were able to control the market and then anybody can open up anywhere? Is that what happened?
There was control over the market, but it wasn't our organisation that had the control. Under regulations that were introduced in 1996, there was a restriction on the number of pharmacies that could hold contracts with the HSE, but it was the HSE or its predecessors, the health boards, that had the control on who would open, and there were specific conditions to be met, and they were very restrictive, and they were probably too restrictive.
But that must have added huge value to a pharmacy business in those times, no?
Yeah, those regulations were enforced from 1996 until January of 2002, and during that time it was virtually impossible for younger pharmacists, and I was one at the time, to open their own pharmacy. There was pretty much a closed shop, but that hasn't been the case for 9 years now, and after the fall of those regulations, you're correct, we did see a huge increase in the number of pharmacies. I suppose there was pent-up demand from younger pharmacists and maybe the more ambitious pharmacists who had been prevented from opening up previously, but in the same time we've also seen a huge corporatisation now with more chains as well, and they're also the pharmacies that have in many cases opened up.
I'd just like to bring you in here, Deirdre Leahy. A pharmacist, to train as a pharmacist, and again I'm coming back to my own days, it was the highest points. Academically you need to be right up there to actually get, and yet then after going through all a very tough training, you're in a kind of a retail environment. Sometimes is there a mismatch between the academic sort of pharmacist and then the person who's effectively the shopkeeper? Just to talk about that for a second.
Well, I think it brings another element to the scientific training that we did. I mean, I would use most of my training every day when someone comes in and would speak about an illness. So that's using my scientific training. But on top of that, then you have your business. So, no, I think it was a tough 4 years, and it is tough in college, but I am using it on a day-to-day basis. And that's what Mary Rose was saying. We feel we could be used more in the sector, take a little bit of pressure off the healthcare sector by being used more. So I don't think that training was lost. Maybe I could have done with more business training.
Yeah. No, I wasn't suggesting that. I was just trying to get a sense for the type of person who becomes a pharmacist or a chemist, because it is an interesting, it is a very interesting business.
It is very interesting.
Now, I have a text in here, and I'm going to put this to you, Darragh. Haven't pharmacists overcharged us for years in Ireland? They have much bigger margins than anywhere else in Europe. They charge private patients more for the same drugs than what the HSE pays for them. That's from Mairead in Dublin. Now, I'm just giving you a text that's come in. There's quite a number of them in here.
Yeah, pharmacy margins in Ireland are not higher than they are elsewhere in Europe, and the margins on 3/4 of the business which we do, which is on medical card prescriptions, are extremely tight. It's true that private patients pay more than the state pays for medical card prescriptions, and that's it's a real feature of our health service, whereby somebody with VHI is paying more for health service than the public sector part of the health service pays. Private patients in Ireland, whether it's in pharmacy, whether it's at primary care level or at hospital level, are subsidising the system.
Okay, I'd like to thank you all for coming. Mary Rose on the phone. Sorry about the quality of the phone line there. Deirdre Leahy from Dunleary.
Thank you.
And Darragh from the IPU. So thank you very much for coming in. And coming up after the break, we're